Hey, Steve and Alex, welcome back to Wyld Adventure 2020 Skyblock Edition. My name is Wyld Ones. Today is February 2nd. Today will be slightly different than previous episodes, although not that much different, I suppose. The main thing I want to accomplish in this video is to get passageways out to all of the other islands around the outside here. Now, that's going to take a long time, and it's pretty repetitive, same thing over and over again. So what I've decided to do here is just basically time-lapse that process while I bring you the interview that I had mentioned that I was going to do. So this video will just play as a time-lapse in the background, and the main part of this video is actually the interview. So I'm going to cut over to that, and we'll get going. Thanks, guys. Okay, so I promised you guys that I would have a guest join me on my next episode, and so she's with me now. This is Nicole, my daughter, and she, for any of you who don't know her, she is the daughter that I was talking about in the episode when we were talking about relationships. And I wanted to start this conversation basically after the conversation that kind of sparked that video. We had a little bit of a follow-up to that, and I wanted to ask you a few more questions based on that. In our original conversation, you mentioned that you thought your mother and I had a fairy tale relationship, and I think I kind of didn't really know what you meant by that, but maybe you'd share with me a little bit of what you meant when you said that.
Yeah, well, what I meant was, I know that relationships and marriage and whatever takes, commitment, and it's a choice and blah, blah, blah. But the whole fairy tale-esque thing that I personally think I missed out on, just based on, my age and stuff, is you guys met when you were 15 or something like that, or 14, and you had, all your adolescence to be friends, and
Okay.
then you got together, and then so you had a really strong foundation before you got married, and that's the fairy tale. Sweet Home Alabama starts out where they're like childhood friends or sweethearts,
Uh-huh.
and then they have that nostalgia, uh, growing up in a sense together,
Okay.
and that's the fairy tale.
Okay, so the fact that your mother and I knew each other when we were teenagers and then kind of became more than that in time, that's what you're referring to as the kind of
Yeah,
fairy tale aspect.
right. And you got to grow up a little bit together. You went from adolescence to adulthood. Even if you weren't together during that time,
Yeah,
you saw each other transform from kid kind of to adult.
sure. And there's value in that. I mean
Yeah.
there's value in what you're saying, that does kind of change the picture based on your relationship. You don't even have the ability to do that anymore because we don't
Right.
even live in the same area as the people you grew up with.
Well, that's
So
true.
that does kind of throw a wrench in that works.
Yeah, and I'm way past my adolescence.
Well, that's kind of an aside, I think. Yes, the adolescence, but I think the main thing that brings to the table is the building of trust and understanding before you go into it. Was many years from the time your mother and I first met each other to the time we became uh, boyfriend and girlfriend, and
Right.
then engaged and married. It was
Mhm.
many years in that gap. Um, and so I think the main thing in that is that was our opportunity to build the trust.
Right.
So even you being in a different situation where you don't have that, it doesn't mean you can't get something approximating it, right?
Well, sure, but okay. I know this is really pessimistic of me to say, but I'm like, I don't have as many years left to just spend that much time getting to know someone.
Okay,
I'm just saying.
fair enough. I mean,
Okay.
right, so you have to fast track it then, I guess. You
Yeah.
have to go into any relationship that you start forming with the attitude of, first off, I've got to test the waters and find out if this is even a relationship I want to be in,
Mm-hmm.
and then form that foundation very deliberately.
Right.
Right? You can't muddle around and say, is this the right one? And you don't have the luxury of the years that your mother and I had,
Right.
because there were many years in that period where we were not even approaching any kind of
Right.
romantic relationship. Um, so you just have to approach that more deliberately, and I think that's true of anybody, right? You just
Yeah.
have to approach it very deliberately. But all of that being said, I think the main key to the successful relationship then is just having that mutual respect and understanding that
Right.
we are going to do things the right way.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me clarify that, because I think I had missed that in our original conversation. It does throw a different light on the subject, but the other thing that I definitely want to talk to you about, you've done something recently
Mm-hmm.
that I'm very, very proud of, and I think you are too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd like to talk about that a little bit. You want to tell us about it?
Okay. Well, I wrote and published my first book. It's a
Yes.
novella. I don't even know how you say that word.
Novella, I believe, but
But yeah, so I don't know. It's on Amazon.
right, and it's called Let's Go.
It's called Let's Go.
Uh-huh.
It's like a thriller-esque like oh, I very lightly use the word horror.
Right. It's
Yeah.
it's
Like
it,
a thriller what is that word? Suspense.
suspense. I
Yeah.
would say maybe more suspense. Yeah, it's
Suspense,
not
yeah.
really thriller because you don't have like the
I guess
classic
that's
jump
true.
start type thing or the
Right.
thing that just throws you off, but it's very, very suspenseful. We
Yeah,
were
suspense. Okay.
we
It's like a weird genre.
It is very,
Yeah.
yes, it's hard to define.
Right.
I will give you that for sure. And we were talking about it earlier, and I mentioned it's not an easy book to read
Right.
because it's very, very dark. It's pretty dark. It's a
Okay.
dark subject matter, right? And
Yeah.
it's difficult to get through. It's not difficult reading, but it's not like a page turner where you just, oh, this is so, and you got to turn the page
Yeah, you
and
definitely
see
need a
what's
break.
next. You have to read it deliberately, but it's not difficult to get to that. It's just that it requires kind of a little bit of a decision to get through it, I guess. I don't know if that's the right thing to say,
Well,
but
yeah.
I don't want that to discourage anyone from reading it, because honestly, the ending makes the whole thing worthwhile.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
so. Now, if you were going to say what the book is about, what would you say? That, without spoilers or anything, but
Yeah.
what would you say the book is
Okay,
about?
so this is the way that I found to tell people what it's about because um yeah, I don't want to spoil anything. Essentially, it's about a young woman who wakes up and finds herself to be somewhere that she doesn't want to be.
Hmm.
There
That
you go. That's all you get.
that is evident from the very first chapter.
Yeah.
Now, you use a lot of there's a lot. Would it be fair to say that you use a lot of symbolism in the book?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Hmm.
so um, this woman being where she doesn't want to be, how would the normal person relate to that? What would it? Okay, when I read the book,
Mm-hmm.
my first thought was, this is very depressing. And then I got to the end
Yeah.
and I thought, well, there's a good reason why this is very depressing, because it seems to me this is all about a struggle to break out of depression. Would that be an accurate assessment, or an okay assessment for me to have?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I didn't want to write something that left people like, um, I don't know the right terminology. I didn't want to write something that would leave somebody with necessarily a definitive feeling
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. You know, like you read it and you're done and you're like, okay, cool, I feel good about that. What's the next thing? It's supposed to leave you with something to think about
Yes.
and chew on and maybe have to go back and read other parts or think about and you're supposed to carry it with you for at least a little bit for you to
And
decide.
kind of mull it over and
Yeah.
decide what it's about,
Right.
what it
Yeah.
means to you.
Right.
Yes. I think you've done a very, very good job of that. You end it with what I would call a Lady and the Tiger kind of ending, which is I don't know if you've ever read that story before, but The Lady and the Tiger is a story that ends very much on that. Well, will she do this or will she do that, or the kind of options are left up in the air, and the reader is the one who ultimately decides what happens in that case. Not really a build your own adventure type of book,
Yeah. No.
because you don't say, okay, this is what we want to do, and then you flip to that page and read that ending. It's these are the options that this person is confronted with, and what do you think that she's going to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any other thoughts you want to leave with us?
I don't know if this is something important to say, but our conversation earlier where you talked about like, oh, it's not like J.K. Rowling creating a world that you're like invested in. It's not like an exciting fun read is what I'm trying to say. When you said
Mm-hmm.
that, it like brought me back down, I think, because this whole time I've been really excited about people reading it and like tell me right now how you feel that I forgot, I guess, that it's not meant. I never meant it that way. I don't know why. I think I just got caught up in the hype of getting it out there and finally finishing it and whatever that like I missed like it's like almost like I missed out on the hype or on the thought of no, you have to mull it over and think about it. No one's gonna come up to me right away and be like, I hated it or I loved it.
Or at least you hope they don't.
Right.
You don't
That wasn't
necessarily
the
want
I
people
don't
to.
want people to do that.
Yeah.
And cuz people I have read it but then I don't hear back from them
Uh-huh.
and I'm honestly okay if they don't like it. I know it's not everyone's cup. It's not going to hurt my feelings if someone reads it and doesn't like it. That's
Right.
fine. But I was like I'm like so ready to hear people's feedback that I forgot
That
that that's not what I wanted. That wasn't the point.
the point of the book is to make people stop and think, as opposed to have an
Right.
immediate reaction. Now,
Right. So I'm glad that I haven't heard anything back yet.
I have both reactions, to be honest with you, when I read it,
Uh-huh.
because you were asking me as you were reading it, you were kind of feeding me pieces and asking my feedback as you were writing your first drafts,
Right.
right? And you had sent me a copy of it and you said, should I keep working on this?
Yeah.
Is it okay that I keep working on this?
Yeah.
And when I got to the end of it, still in that mode of not really sure how I feel about the story itself, but I
Uh-huh.
got to the end, and do you remember what I said to you at that time? I don't.
You said something like I think not it's not that I think that you should, it's that I think that you need to.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
or something of
Something
that nature.
like that, yeah.
Because I think you were asking me, is it okay for me to write this story?
Yeah, I
And I
struggled
said, I
writing
don't
it a little
think
bit.
that it's okay for you to write this story. I think you have to write
Yeah,
this story.
yeah, it was something like
There
that,
is
yeah.
something in this story that needs to be told, and there are people that need to read this story, and um, I think it is going to do for people who need to see this story, to read this story. It's going to hit them in a way that they're probably going to hang on to for years and years, and it's going to be a staple in their lives, I believe.
Well,
So,
that's what it's there for. So,
all right. Well, Nicole, I'm so glad that you took the time to join me today, and I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I do appreciate everything that you've done, and best of luck with this work. And I know you've got other things on the horizon that you're working both independently and as a collaboration with other people, and I hope that goes well for you too.
thanks.
You want to share anything about any of that or not?
No, not
Okay.
yet. It's not,
Still to come.
We'll see.
Type thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
stay tuned.
All right. All right. Well, very good. Thank you, and you have a fantastic day.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.